This is the conversation with Gianni Russo. He's an actor and singer, popularly known for his role of Carlo Rizzi in one of the greatest movies of all time, The Godfather. He has allegedly worked with the Sicilian Mafia in New York City, La Cosa Nostra, and particularly with Frank Costello. In this conversation, we discuss his childhood growing up in New York City in the 40s and 50s. We talk about his interactions with the mob, with Frank Costello, Frank Sinatra, and Marilyn Monroe. And we also talk about his experience on the sets of The Godfather. This is no time. If you like what you see, then do hit subscribe on YouTube, follow on Spotify, rate 5 stars in Apple Podcasts. This project takes a lot of my time, money, and effort. So if you'd like to see it continue, do consider making a donation on Patreon, Anchor. You can buy a gift on Instagram Reels. You can buy super thanks on YouTube. You can become a member on YouTube. If not through monetary channels, then do consider sharing these episodes, leaving your likes and comments. All forms of engagement, they really go a long way. For other forms of love and support, you can follow this channel on Instagram or Twitter, or follow me personally.
Buonasera. And now is no time.
In the song New York, New York,
Yes.
Frank Sinatra had said the following words: "Start spreading the news, you're leaving today. I want to be a part of it, New York, New York. These vagabond shoes, they're longing to stray right through the very heart of it, New York, New York. I want to wake up in that city that doesn't sleep and find I'm king of the hill, top of the heap. These little town blues are melting away. I'm going to make a brand new start of it in old New York. If I can make it there, I'll make it anywhere." You grew up in Little Italy in Lower Manhattan in the early 1940s and 50s. You have mentioned in your book that Little Italy is not the same anymore. New York City is not the same anymore. So take me back in time. Can you paint a picture? What was Little Italy like 80 years ago? What was New York City like? What was an average day in the city like?
Well, then it was a city that was just coming together. The population basically down in Little Italy was all Italians. Then the Chinese started moving in. But I can only remember a short part of it because I was down there for 6 years of age. And then I got sick. And then I went to the hospital for 5 years, which, I got out when I was 12. And I was living in Bellevue on 31st Street and the East End. And then when I came out, I went to Little Italy for a while, just like 3 or 4 months. And then I took the train uptown all the time. And then I got up here and I never left.
Do you remember the smell of Little Italy, the aromas? Do you remember the smell of La Luna or Umberto's Clam House?
Oh my God, forget about it, yeah. That was the whole thing. Well, we didn't have so much carbon monoxide either then. So you had the aromas of all the bread in the morning. I mean, Magnati's Bakery, where I worked on Mott Street, that was like, the bread had to be out at 4 o'clock. Yeah. So we started baking bread at 2 o'clock in the morning. So all you smelled was bread. And I remember the sauces from the different restaurants prepping. It was a great atmosphere.
You used to live in the flower room of Magnati's Bakery.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I lived there, not for long though. I lived there about 6 months, which was good for me because unbeknownst to me, the coal ovens took out all the moisture in the air. And then I used to sleep in the storage room where the flour was. So again, there was no humidity. That's why at 83, I got no rheumatism, nothing. All my friends are having all kinds of knee replacements, everything else. It was just, I believe in that guy upstairs.
Now you know what to do. Just sleep in the flower room of the Magnati's Bakery. No problems when you're 80. You mentioned that your childhood was unfortunately cut short because one day you woke up in the closet, that was your bed, and you couldn't feel the left side of your body.
Right.
And then you were diagnosed with polio on August 7th, 1949. And you were put in the quarantine ward of the Bellevue Hospital with thousands of other kids. For the next 5 years of your life, you were cut off from family. You became afraid of making friends because you never knew which kid might die overnight.
Well, what happened the first few months, obviously I was lonely, and I got there August 7th, like you said. My birthday was approaching December 12th. And I asked Dolores Barone, who became my floor nurse, who happened to be Carlo Gambino's niece. And for the audience who don't know who Carlo Gambino is, he had the biggest crime family at that time. He had 5,000 members. It was the biggest family, and then got respect from all over the world. But, the transition from me going to church with my grandmother every morning and then being in a hospital bed, a 20-bed ward, no less. The only privacy we had was white drapes when they came to examine us. But I just didn't want to make friends because I made a few friends. And then as I got friendly with them, one guy in particular, Robbie Matucci, and the next day, his bed was being scrubbed, and they told me he went to heaven. And I was so confused. I'm saying, wait a minute, I was already an altar boy. And I'm saying, why is God killing all these kids? I would never change an hour of my life, though, because all of that foundation made me who I am. I mean, my energy level, even at my age now, I have 2,300 employees. I got business in 73 countries, and I'm about to expand. It's like, but I think that thriving and energy, and I just love life. And so I don't know where I would be if I was just a normal Italian American growing up in the neighborhood. If I would have went to the John Gotti side of it, or who knows? I don't know.
I just want to pick your brains more on the quarantine ward. You became an unwilling subject of Jonas Salk's vaccine experiments. You became a poster boy for the March of Dimes. Can you paint the picture for me? You just mentioned that kids next to you used to hear the gurney at night, and that meant like the kid next to you had passed away, and you used to hate the squeaking noise of the gurney. You wish that they would oil it up. Can you paint the picture for me? What was the polio epidemic like at the Bellevue Hospital? What are some of the memories that stand out to you for the ward?
Well, those memories obviously will always be so lasting to me because of the fact that, and everybody's situation was different. Like, fortunately for me, my left side of my body was totally paralyzed. The elasticity muscles didn't grow. But now the kid in the iron lung, his lungs didn't grow. So there was all different types. So some people couldn't move at all. So, I mean, it wasn't like there was one stereotype of the disease. And like we saw a couple of years ago with COVID, everybody was frantic. They didn't know how to handle it. Like COVID, it took them like 7 months to find out if you slept on your side, your lungs wouldn't fill up with fluid. I mean, a stupid thing like that. How many people did we died each month before they realized if you slept on your side? I mean, so, and that awareness, just from that now, here we are, it's 30, 40 years later. And medicine is still naive in so many ways. It's crazy.
Did you find that the experience that you had in the ward, where you found it difficult to make friends with the other kids because you just never knew when they might pass away, did it affect the friendships that you might make later in your life? Like, because you had that fear, did it ever change the friendships you had?
Well, basically, I'm a loner anyway now.
Okay.
And stayed that way. And then when I met Mr. Costello, that whole transition from him being my father image, because my father never came to see me, and here's a guy that had tremendous respect, and I didn't know who he was, who I know, 12 years old, who Frank Costello was. I soon found out, and it was, I think, the naivety of not being associated, that's what drew me to him and him to me, because I was a loner. And you noticed I don't speak. You ask me a question, I give you one answer, yes, no. And in his life, not knowing what had an idea for me, and I didn't realize he was leaving organized crime. He was going with Meyer Lansky when they created the syndicate, which was a bigger operation than being, out of Harlem with the Genovese family. And I fit right into it, like I've done in so many different situations in my life. It's not that I, purposely thought I could do this. I just was very naive, very happy, and he gave me a position in life. Every time I saw the guy, he'd shake my hand with a $100 bill in it. You're talking about in the 50s. Yeah. I used to want to bump into him a couple of times a day. I'd make $300 or $400 a day. which was insane, which created another problem. What am I going to do with all this money? Because I knew, people would rob it from me. But, it's a great problem to have, believe me, to have too much money and not enough money.
I wish I had that problem. We will come to Mr. Costello, but before that, I'm going to jump back into the timeline. While you were at the quarantine ward at Bellevue, Dolores Barone saved your life by giving you a transistor radio before your 11th birthday, and you discovered that you shared a birthday with a man named Frank Sinatra. Sinatra had a very similar upbringing to yours. You grew up in Hoboken. You found inspiration from that. Many people in the newer generation don't know about the impact and influence of Old Blue Eyes. So what I want to ask from you is, can you paint the picture and can you talk about the aura of Frank Sinatra? What was he like? What was the chairman of the board like?
Well, the interesting thing about what you're saying is that when I did turn on the radio at 6 o'clock in the morning, they were already talking about the chairman of the board, Frank Sinatra, and I didn't know anything about him. But that's how I found out he was from humble beginnings in Hoboken. His mother was a barmaid. His father worked Todd Shipyard. And he inspired me because he's an Italian-American. Now he's doing 5 shows, 6 shows a day in New York Paramount, 10 blocks from me. I mean, my relationship right till he died, which is very sentimental with me, because I was one of the last few people to sit with him. Yeah. But from that transition, from listening to him on the radio, and then I met him 3 years later, because I'm working for Frank Costello, and one of my stops to pick up envelopes and drop-off envelopes was the Copacabana. Yeah. And I got there like 5:30, and there was lines outside already. And I walk into the basement. That's how I went in all the time through the kitchen. And there he was doing a sound check. I couldn't believe it. This is a guy I've been listening to every day on my little transistor radio. Yeah. I still have that transistor radio. It's here,
You have it?
Oh, no, it's crazy.
Yeah.
But the interesting thing is that when I saw him, I didn't realize the power of Mr. Costello. Because when I walked in the room, Jules Bodell, who was the manager and owner on paper, Frank looked at him and looked at me to say, like, who's this kid? And he said, oh, no, that's Costello's boy. I felt 6 feet tall. And he kept on singing. So I sat down. I listened to 3 or 4 songs. And then he put a cigarette in his mouth. I went over and I lit it. And I said, you saved my life, Mr. Sinatra. He said, how'd I do that? And I told him. And when I was telling him, again, not realizing what I was saying and the importance of what I was saying, I said, well, I was in Bellevue. My birthday was coming. And Mr. Gambino sent me a transistor radio. Is Mr. Gambino like Carlo Gambino? I said, yeah. He said, okay. So I keep telling the story, and I started listening to him, and, and he inspired me to get out of there. And I was part of Jonas Salk's experiment. And in 3 years, I walked out. Not walked out, man, I limped out, but I got out. He said, what's your name? I said, the Kid. He said, no, what's your real name? I said, I can't tell you that. He said, why? I said, well, Mr. Costello told me not to tell anybody my real name. He said, wait a minute. Carlo Gambino gave you a transistor radio. Costello names you the Kid. He said, maybe I should get to know you. You sound more important than I am. And we hit it off from that day.
You had a very intimate relationship with Frank Sinatra. You hear so many interesting stories about him. He could be your best friend, but he could also be your worst enemy.
Oh, yeah.
There are so many people who talk about how emotional he was. Some people called him sensitive, insecure, bipolar. Ava Gardner said he used to behave like a woman as well. He was an interesting person, if you really listen to the stories.
I mean, it was very complex, which again, just me having a friendship with him, I had to learn, because once he started drinking, I'd say, good night, Frank, see you. Because that's when he's going to go bipolar.
Right.
And then what happened also, I don't know if you found this out in your research, when he married Mia Farrow, he moved 5 blocks up.
Right here?
Right here.
Yeah.
So every time he had a fight with her, he'd come down here, and I said, oh my God, I got to get out of here. I wouldn't answer the bell sometimes.
It's so interesting, right? He was one of the biggest stars of the 20th century. And then for him to still feel a bit insecure, so surprising. Like, success is no marker of like how you feel within yourself.
Well, it's interesting. I saw the differences, though, of some of the women that he had. I mean, here you have Ava Gardner, one of the most powerful women in the world, didn't need him. And he fell in love with her. And most people don't even know this story about his wife, Nancy. Nancy loved Frank. They were childhood sweethearts in the neighborhood. And when she knew what Ava Gardner meant to him, she gave him a divorce. And she moved him, her and the kids, to Holmby Hills just so he could be a father to the kids. And he could be close to Ava Gardner. I never had a woman like that in my life. I had a girlfriend, they wanted to throw furniture at me. But you know, it was, you know, again, that was another lesson in life with him. And as I said to you, I was with him the last few weeks of his life. His wife, Barbara, at that time, cut everybody off. So I just went to the house one day because I knew his routine. At 2:30, he came out by the pool. And I went through the yard and I went to see him. What do I care about her? I knew her all her life, you know, and not that she had a great reputation, so I was I'm going to respect her. I respect her because of him. But we talked and I knew he was on his way out. See, what I knew also, and nobody can understand it, because he's such a perfectionist, even when he was giving me my singing lessons and all of that stuff, to watch him deteriorate on stage, which he was always a perfectionist. And I found out why later, because he was singing with monitors that were feeding him the lyrics. The deal they made with him and let him live was that he would sing for them until he died.
Yeah.
So even when his voice was going, he'd still fill the casinos. That's why he was there. And that made sense to me now because I knew this guy. He didn't need money. He had like 6 Budweiser distribution. I mean, he had money everywhere. But, you know, so all of these people, fortunately, that I've learned a lot about in different walks of life, Saddam Hussein, Pablo Escobar. You know, I got to know these people. And you know, like I just did a concert in Baku, Azerbaijan. And they were so excited because Putin bought 100 tickets for my show. And that Saturday night, he created an embargo because of all the stuff that was going on with the Ukraine and all that. So nobody could leave his country. But even, I mean, the producer of the show said, Putin's coming to your show. I can't believe it. But that's how insane my life is, you know, but it's crazy. But the things that I've been experiencing because of the relationships, and I just kept, you know, I left this country for 22 months during the Kennedy assassination. I've left this country so many times. But I mean, and I had a conversation with Pope John Paul, who's now a saint. I've known 3 popes. And he said to me one time, he said, how do you justify your life? I said, what do you mean? He said, you know, we're friends. How do you justify what you've done in the past even? I said, what are you talking about? He said, well, you know what I'm talking about. I said, if you're talking about the people I killed, I only killed bad people. I'm doing God's work on earth. He looked at me, he said, I'll never ask you another question again.
Do you remember Sinatra's voice? Do you remember him as a performer? Is there one performance of his that's still in your mind to date?
Oh, blew me away. Madison Square Garden. I was there. Oh, it was insane. And that's even when, another time was when Marilyn sang Happy Birthday to the President. I mean, these were times you could say, where am I, you know? And they're talking to me from the stage. That was a great thing to me because, you know, my ego, which I still have, and I will never let it go. But to be sitting at the Copa Room, let's say, whether here or at the Sands Hotel, and have Dean Martin and Sammy, they're talking to me from stage. Hey, the kids in the audience. Everybody said, who's this kid? Nobody really knew my name, you know, until I made The Godfather. Because everybody knew me as the kid. And nobody knew I was an actor on the streets. So we said, you didn't tell me you could act. I said, I didn't know I could. That was my first movie. But, you know, it was, that's what I'm saying. to try. And the only reason I wrote this book is interesting because as I was getting older, I could see my own kids. They lost that respect. It's not what it used to be. You know, anybody over 21 in our neighborhood, we called them aunt or uncle. It was just a thing you did.
Yeah.
But my grandkids come in here. They don't even say hello to me. No, they're on their iPad. They're so preoccupied. It's a different, that's the one thing I really noticed. And that's why really early, like the conversation we had about my family in the dining room, I don't invite them. I'm not a hypocrite. If you can't respect me, I don't care who you are. I'm done with you. And I'm that way because I have that ability because I've isolated myself so many times. My emotions, I mean, I've got them so far buried before I show an emotion now. Because I did that. I was hurt enough. I was alone for 5 years. And I used to watch other parents come and bang on the window and wave to their kids. My parents never came. I guess it was, I don't know who created it. My father was a germ freak to begin with. He was not going to go into a hospital. And I don't know what happened, but I let it go. But I think that calloused me and gave me a resilience that I did what I did. I have no fear. I have no fear, which people think that's crazy. I've been shot, stabbed, my throat was slit, 81 stitches. I'm here.
You're here. You brought up Mr. Costello. Let's go there. When you got out of the quarantine ward after 5 years, you mentioned your parents didn't come to visit you. You went inside living in the flower room of Magnati's Bakery. You used to take the N train all the way up to 59th Street and 5th Avenue and start selling ballpoint pens to the clients of the Sherry Netherlands Hotel. And at that point, you met one of the most powerful men in the world. So for people who don't know, who was the ambassador? Who was Frank Costello? What was he like?
Frank Costello, while Vito Genovese was in prison, was the boss of the Genovese family, one of the 5 families in New York. But what's more important, which people don't know, in the 20s and 30s, he amassed $50, $60, $70 million a year during Prohibition. This is his building.
Yeah.
I live here. When he died in 73, George Wolfe, his attorney, said, come to the office. And he gave me a piece of paper, and I left. He said, oh, no, I want you to open it. I said, why? He said, aren't you curious? I said, no, how many envelopes I picked up for? He said, no, this is for you. So I opened it. And he gave me 6 units in here. I live in 2, I rent out 4. But that's the kind of guy. He still owns 11 Wall Street. It's a 50-story building. We're not talking about, and this guy had no education either. As a young man, he got in the wrong crowd. Because when a lot of people from Sicily, when they first came here, didn't go to Mulberry Street, Little Italy. They went to Harlem, because that's where the Sicilians were. Down here was Mulberry Street, was a lot of Napolitans, Neapolitans. Mm-hmm. So he got in with the wrong people. And the first thing, he got a gun arrest. And it did 5 or 6 months. Yeah. And from that point on, he realized he's a lot smarter than that. And look what he did. I know more about him than most people because Loretta and him had no kids. I just finished my 3rd book, Mafia Secrets. Now they asked me to do another book, and I'm doing it. It's The Son He Never Had. And it's all about this. When I tell you what he owned, I know. And he's dead now, and you don't care. But the reason I'm sharing it now, this man wasn't an idiot. He was a genius. That's why, he and Meyer Lansky, what they did in this world is insane. They controlled Vegas for years. I took like $700-800 million out of there for them. In 5 or 6 years I was doing that. We're talking about almost $1 billion. That's insanity.
You mentioned he was a genius. He was like a father figure to you. You've mentioned in your book that gangsters were different when Frank Costello took me under his wing. They had a sense of style. They knew how to keep their mouths shut. And when they gave their word, it meant something. You've also mentioned in your book that the Mafia taught me about the way of life. Can you talk about the lessons that you learned from the mob, from the Gambinos, from Frank Costello? What did they teach you about the way of life and the way of the world?
Well, the way of life that was I knew, because I was privy because of Carlo Gambino knowing my family and my uncle in Sicily. Yeah. So I can go to the Ravenite, their club, anytime. Yeah. The law was nobody that was not a made man could go in that club until after 12 o'clock. Because before 12 on Sunday is when all the real guys came to give them the envelopes and all that. And that was for nobody's eyes. And a lot of times I'd be sitting in there, and they all got used to the kid being there. When John Gotti started, because his, what we call him, his rabbi in the neighborhood was O'Neill Della Croco. And O'Neill was the underboss. And the reason he took Gotti in, because Gotti, they found out in Howard Beach, was a big hijacker. And they called him in. You can't do this in our neighborhood. We get a piece. So he had to bring an envelope every week. And one day, we're about 16, 17 years old, John and I, we're only a couple years apart. And he said to O'Neill, and I never saw this side of O'Neill, because O'Neill was always gentle with me. He said, how come that kid is in here? He says, what kid? He's that kid. He said, mean, the kid? He says, yeah. He said, come over here. He got up. He bitch smacked him. He said, don't ever ask me a question about that kid. He said, why? And he hit him again. He said, I just told you don't ask me. He said, let me tell you something. I heard a lot about you. You're a very vengeful person and violent. He said, if that kid gets a splinter, I'm going to stick a telephone pole up your ass personally. Now get out of here and come here. Don't come here for 6 months. I still want my envelope every Sunday. Not only build a bigger hatred for John. John hated me. Yeah. But, you know, so to answer your question, I never wanted to be a part of that club. Because even the old timers who are respectful guys, but you know, that whole group is gone. The old classy guys like Carlo Gambino, you know, he was a braggart. He didn't do anything. In fact, I had the privilege right down the block at Rodney Dangerfield's club. I was doing a show. I wanted to be a singer. And I was singing and going all there. And they booked me here. Unbeknownst to me, Carlo Gambino called everybody for my opening night and said, you got to be there for that kid. I walked out. Everybody, you name everybody, every family in New York was there. They were all sitting there. And the club was like you're working on an airplane wing. It was very long and narrow. And there's Carlo Gambino, O'Neill, everybody was sitting there, Joe the Cat, everything. And I came out, and that's when they were all wearing the lavender color shirts and all of this. And I came out, and I looked at the room, and I said, you look like Baskin-Robbins here. It's like 56 flavors in the room. You could hear a pin drop until he started laughing. And then he started laughing, and that was the end of it. But people, even for that night, and John and them were at the bar, they couldn't even come in the room. And they built a hatred that I loved because I didn't want nobody around me. You couldn't come near me. And if you did, nobody don't realize I'm 10th degree Tai Chi Matsu. See this hand? This hand, I know everybody bought your nerve centers. I'm not going to get violent. Well, yeah, I'm going to come over and caress you. And then you'll be leave paralyzed or on the floor. But everything they taught me, especially, you know, with Costello first, don't ever repeat anything I tell you. And he, you know what, something, he never wrote anything down. People want to know, how do I have retention like I do? He would tell me something, I had to remember it. There's not a piece of paper. One time when he got shot, and I saw him the next day. If you read the newspaper about it, when in his paper, he had a slip with the breakdown of the Tropicana Hotel, slot machines, this, that, and that. And he got that piece of paper from Blackie. He's don't ever write that thing, because now they wanted to know what he had with that. See? So I don't write anything down. And anytime I talk to real guys, they're not around anymore, like Marcello's, and when they were planning the Kennedy assassination, as soon as I'd walk in, they go like this. No talking. So when they had to tell me something, they'd call me over. Hey, kid. I go over there, he'd whisper in my ear. And they now repeat it back to me. It's me, right? Go tell that guy. That was it. They had that club bugged. I'd go in and out of there. They couldn't stop me. Get out of here.
You brought up Meyer Lansky. You spoke about how Frank Costello was so influential. A lot of people forget how deeply embedded the mafia was in building America. People talk about the greatness of New York City, of Chicago, of Las Vegas, but they forget that it was the mafia, the La Cosa Nostra, that actually built these cities. If you were an actor, musician, politician, a lot of the presidents as well, you had to be well connected with the mafia. You need to know the wise guys and the made men. You had to have those connections. I think the mafia was so deeply ingrained in America that for better or worse, it would have been a very different country if they weren't in it. Would you agree?
I definitely agree. And what was told to me early on, because he wanted me to let me know why this organization was started. And Carlo Gambino, most people don't know this, Carlo Gambino, when he was 16, 17, he was made in Sicily by the Gambino family that's still there. It's still working. Very powerful. He was made and sent here to get control of the Moderado gangs and all of them, which in this country they're called the Black Hand. They were shaking down Italian immigrants, shaking their business, selling them protection. When they found out about that over there, they put their own crew together. And that's what that was about. He said, I want you to know why we started this. And Costello didn't get involved until later on. But by that time, that's why the 5 families came into it. And 5, it was an organization, like a council, that ran certain boroughs and towns, and you couldn't shake down immigrants anymore. And then it got into drugs and betting and shylocking and with a new regime, and it was all that, crazy stuff. But,
Yeah, I agree. They have such a massive impact in American history. While you were working with Frank Costello, a truant officer caught you one day and you were forced to go and finish your school. So you enrolled at the Wilfred Academy. And while you were at the Wilfred Academy, you bumped into an actor named Marilyn Monroe.
Well, I actually didn't bump into it. It was funny because, as you said, one of my routes was Dempsey's Restaurant. And I just dropped off envelopes. I'm going to meet him at Toots Shor's, which was their daily stop. 4 o'clock, you go to Toots Shor's, Sinatra, Joe DiMaggio, and Jackie Gleason, because he was doing a Jackie Gleason show from the CBS studios. So everybody was there. And I was going there all the time. I was dropping off stuff at Toots Shor. And I came in with the ticket in my hand. And he said, how'd you get a ticket? Walking too fast? And like you, everybody started laughing. I didn't get it. So he got it. And he said, this is a truant officer's ticket. I said, yeah. He said, how old are you? I said, I'm 15 and a half. He said, how many years you working for me? I said, about 3 years. He said, well, I'll straighten this out. Next day I see him, because I used to meet at 11 o'clock most mornings at the Waldorf. He'd do all his business and then go do what he had to do. So he said, I straightened this out. Tomorrow, before you come and see me, go to Wilfred Academy. It's on top of Lindy's. Just sign in and leave. So I go there, 9 o'clock in the morning. The lady said, oh, just sign in. I sign in. I look over her shoulder. There's 20, 30 little girls, gorgeous 15, 16-year-old girls. So I used to hang there until I went to see him. He said, I hear you hanging at the school. I said, Frank, where am I going to find 30 girls? And I used to take them to the Coke because I could sit anywhere I want. But thank God I was doing that, because Mark Sinclair and Kenneth came in to get Shampoo Boys. And they were 2 figures. So I didn't know them. They were partners. I thought they were partners in the business. I didn't know they were partners. Man, I didn't know anything about that. So they picked me because I was already dressed to go to meet him. So now they were working on Lily Daché on 56th and Park. I used to pass that all the time. All the limousines, all the high society women getting dropped off. So the teacher tells me, if they pick you, it'll be like going to school. You go there, and the good news, you can make tips I didn't care about the tips. I'd make more money than they did. But I get there, and the fourth head of hair was Marilyn Monroe. And it wasn't like we know salons here with the lines of sinks. There were actually rooms. Yeah. These women had robes on, high class. And I walk in the room, and there's Marilyn Monroe. And I didn't even know how long I was staring at her. She finally said, "Is there someone in here?" I said, "Yeah, I'm sorry, excuse me." And I go over there, and they taught me to run the water and test it on her wrist and all that. I'm doing all that. And I'm looking at Marilyn Monroe. People don't know. What I used to do when he went home, I used to go to the cathedral, St. Patrick's, and say my novena to St. Anthony's. Because when I was in the hospital, I made a novena. If I ever got out, I'll go to church every day. And I did. I was afraid not to. I thought I'd walk out and be crippled again. But then I'd leave there because I didn't know where to go, maybe 11, 12 o'clock at night. New York Paramount was open 24 hours a day. So I went to see Some Like It Hot 10 times. By the time I saw her, and as I'm shampooing her hair, she's moaning because she wanted a strong shampoo. So I'm rubbing her hair, and she's moaning and I'm 15 and a half years old. I mean, I don't want to be crude, but picture a shampoo basin. My three-piece set is on her shoulders. She's moaning. I'm getting an erection. And she starts recommending me, wants me, requesting me. And we became a friendship. And then Costello moved here for a year at the Waldorf because he thought, she wanted to become a true actress. So she was studying with everybody, Lee Strasberg, and he put her in the Waldorf for years. Now, you can imagine me and her for a year. I was 16, she was 31, forget about it.
What was she like as a person? Because she was probably the most famous, one of the biggest sex symbols in Hollywood film industry. Was she happy about that tag? Did she want to change it? Was she happy with the success? Why we hit it off, and it was a Saturday afternoon, I can remember it. I went up to see her because he went deep sea fishing with Tony Accardo in Chicago. He used to do that. So I went up there, and she just ordered room service. I knocked on the door, and she said, "Johnny, what are you doing here?" I said, "Well, Mr. C told me to check in." He said, "Come on in. I just ordered room service." She had all these carts with food on them. I've never been in a hotel room. So she said, "Come in, sit down." I said, "I can't. I have to go downstairs." No, come in. She takes me by the hand. She got a robe on. She says, "Have some breakfast." I said, "I had breakfast a while ago." She said, "Have a glass of champagne." I said, "I can't have champagne. I'm only 16. She said, "You can have anything you want in this room." She gave me a glass of champagne. I'm saying to myself, I'm going to die here today. I got a funny feeling. Yeah. So I had one glass, two glasses. I'm getting umbriago because I don't drink, So she takes me by the hand. She said, "I'm going to take a bath." I said, "I'll go downstairs. Just call the front desk. They all know me. Tell me you want the kid. I'll come right up." No, come with me. She goes in the bathroom, takes me with her, turns on the bathtub water, and she sits at the vanity. She says, "Brush out my hair like you do in the salon. After I shampoo, I did it. Okay, no problem." I'm doing that. Tub fills up. She goes up and shuts it. She says, "Get in the tub with me." I said, "What?" And she drops her robe. I'm looking at Marilyn Monroe. I'm saying to myself, this was a Saturday afternoon. To be a gentleman, I got in the tub Saturday afternoon. I left Monday morning. But what we found out that weekend, when she was 12, she was put in an orphanage. Yeah.
So the parallels of me being 12, her being there. And basically, she was so naive, and all she thought she could offer you as a repayment of anything was herself. And everybody, including Sinatra, Tony Curtis, they all took advantage of her. They all had their way with her. And I was so pissed at Sinatra one night. I said, "I can't believe you were her friend. She told me oh man, you okay?" I said, "Tony, don't say nothing else." Because he knew I was mad. She was looking for a friend. I was truly her friend. I could feel what she felt because I had that same thing. But, I had to prove myself, but not like she did. And that's why Costello noticed that. And he put in this school. And the secret was, And he found out, that's how smart he was. Reading her contract, she had to stay at a certain weight. So she started getting heavy to break the contract. But she was pregnant. And nobody knew it. The only person who knew it was Strasberg's daughter. I didn't even know it. I found out years later that I have a daughter with her who's now 63 years old. But I didn't find out till much later. But she went there, and Strasberg's daughter made everybody think it was her daughter. That's why nobody knew about it. And Costello took care of all this time, which was amazing. And he gave her and I a brownstone not too far from here. And I released my ownership to her, the daughter. And she's living happily ever after up in Westchester.
Marilyn Monroe was like one of the biggest stars of her time, but to hear that she wasn't happy with the position she was in or the way Hollywood was treating her.
And you know what was interesting? The last weekend, in fact, I'll give both of you a photograph nobody has. The last weekend in July in 1962, they're having a meeting up in Cal Neva, which they owned a part of. Cal Neva is a casino on the California-Nevada border. Yeah. And the reason they did this, they were smart. All of their other friends, the gangsters, can go there through the California side. Nobody knows there. This particular weekend, they planned, and Sam Giancana, the photograph I'm going to give you, he was the cameraman. He had the only camera. He had the cameras in her room, and they invited Bobby Kennedy to catch him with her one more time so he could stop harassing them all. Because the problem John made, he appointed his brother Attorney General, which is the highest ranking law firm position in the world. And soon as he appointed him, he went after everybody. All the guys that made his brother president. Nobody realizes this is part of history. At that weekend, it was insane. He was only president for 75, 80 days at that time. That's all he was. And she went ballistic when Sinatra said, "We want you to do us a favor. We wired your room with cameras, and we want you to have your way with Barbie. We're going to film it." Well, we didn't know what was going on. He got her pregnant, and he forced her to have an abortion because he already had kids with his wife, Ethel. Now, how could an attorney general? Well, she started screaming, "I'm going to the press. I'm done with these Kennedys." You know, because John convinced her, "I got to stay married to Jackie for 2 years. I'm a Catholic. After that, I'll divorce her and marry you." That's how naive she was. I came right back here and I told him, they're going to kill her. That was the last Sunday in July. That Thursday, she was dead, August 4th. I'm going to give you a picture of the last photograph of Marilyn Monroe. And guess who's in the picture? Sinatra, me, Buddy Greco, who was playing the lounge there, and her. It's like insane. I have this picture. I have so many pictures of her. I took pictures. We'd walk in Central Park. She'd put a disguise or a wig on. She just liked common things. She hated being Marilyn Monroe, the sex symbol.
Let's talk about John F. Kennedy and Bobby Kennedy. You've bumped into them multiple times when you went to the resorts in Las Vegas as well. What were they like as people? You hear so many stories about
I
them.
love John. I mean, I really like John Kennedy. And that was one of my missions during the Democratic primaries and all that. I was traveling to every mobster in the world, giving envelopes, all the union leaders, the Teamsters, Culinary Union, International Longshoremen. They needed that vote. And they still thought they weren't going to make it. That's when they made the deal with Lyndon Baines Johnson. Lyndon Baines Johnson hated the Kennedys, but he wanted to be president. So the deal they made, and probably nobody even knows this, the deal they made, they promised him the next 8 years. They said, "John will be president for 8, and then you'll go in and do the next 8. That's why he went along with it. That's why when they needed to get him assassinated, Lyndon B. Johnson made the arrangements. That's why he was in Dallas. Not only did the 5 families have shooters, there was 5 shooters. The CIA hated him because Kennedy fired the head of the CIA as soon as he got in because he wasn't getting along with his brother. So, and to add more danger to it, the Texas Rangers were the backup to the CIA. Kennedy was not leaving that day. And that was it. And he was killed on the 100th day of being the President of the United States. That's insanity, how I'm a part of American history for all the wrong reasons.
This is such a hidden part of American history that not many people know of JFK and RFK's involvement with the mob. Their father, Joe Kennedy, was heavily involved with the Mafia during the Prohibition era, built up his entire empire during the Prohibition era.
Early on. I mean, he and Rothstein and Costello.
Yeah.
I mean, and Joe Kennedy, you know, he did $100 million then. That he invested in Chicago, built a merchandise mart. I mean, he was a smart man. He actually became an ambassador to the United States.
Yeah.
I mean, the guy was very clever. Yeah. I learned a lot from him.
From Joe Kennedy?
By watching what he did. Oh. I don't want to be an officer or an ambassador or nothing. I like my life.
Yeah. You mentioned you liked John. There's a saying, everyone remembers where they were and what they were doing when JFK was assassinated. Can you paint the picture of that day? What was the sentiment in the nation like? What was the mood like when people heard that the president had been shot? How did the people react?
What I'm about to tell you, nobody knows. That day, when I had the conversation coming back, and then I was traveling again, and seeing the same people that I got John F. Kennedy elected to, I don't know what was going on. I thought they were going to kill Bobby. I came back, and the last man I was with was Marcello's in New Orleans. Yeah. And he went like this to me. I just got off the plane. And he said, tell our friend, it's on. I just left 4 other guys that told me the same 2 words. That was the message.
Yeah.
So I go there. I meet him Monday morning. He said, what's the message? It's on. I said, okay. And he got very solemn. He gave me a manila envelope. He said, there's $15,000 in there. Go buy some clothes. You're going to leave the country on the U.S. independence. He's like, I just signed on as a hairdresser. That's how clever he was. As a merchant marine, I didn't leave the country with my passport unless they would have assassinated me. They were looking for me for a long time. Yeah. I go on that ship. That morning, I got Gucci luggage. I'm going with the crew, and they say, no, passengers over there. I said, I'm not a passenger. They told me I'm all dressed in Brioni. You know? So I got to them. I said, I need to talk to Captain Pennington. Told me to ask for the chief purser. Yeah. And he came down. And he said, Mr. Russo. I said, yeah, come with me. And he brought me upstairs. U-deck. I was never on a ship. I was calling it a boat. He corrected me 10 times. It's a ship. It's not a boat. I go to my suite. I never saw him. I'm still in the East Side Harbor, looking at skyscraper up in this unbelievable place. And these 2 little kids come running out on the next patio. And I said, are they on the trip? They said, yeah. I said, can you move my room? I don't want these kids around me. He said, shoot, their mother requested you. I said, their mother? He said, Grace Kelly. I was friends with Grace Kelly early on. Now she's Princess Grace. And that was Carolyn and her son Albert as kids. Long story short, the next day, not the next day, a couple hours, we disembark. We're going under the Verrazano Bridge, talking about everybody knows where they were. I was on that boat going under the Verrazano Bridge when they announced the president has been shot. He wasn't dead yet. Shot in Dallas. Well, all the pilot boats pulled up. All the dignitaries were getting off the boat. And I'm saying to myself, I'm going to be on this boat with all these broads. That's where my head was. When we went out to sea the next morning, we saw the telex that he was dead. That was it. you could drop a pin on that boat. Even the band was playing very solemn music in the dining room. It was like, it was morgue. Thank God I had Grace Kelly as a friend. We would get drunk every night in our room. You know, we knew what was going on, but didn't know it was going to be him. And then, you know, it was, that's where I was. And I was gone for 21 months. I didn't come back.
It's such an influential day in American history. Again, the assassination of John F. Kennedy.
Oh.
And you had a role to play in that and story. Let's talk about The Godfather. When Paramount announced that they were going to make a movie based on Mario Puzo's The Godfather, Joe Colombo, head of the Colombo family, founder of the Italian-American Civil Rights League, he tried to stop the production from happening. Was it a risk at that point for Paramount executives, for Francis Ford Coppola to make that movie because the Mafia was still so strong that they didn't want to see the movie out there?
Well, the biggest problem they had was because, number one, Costello's son, Joe Jr., was arrested. So he was using the book just to grandstand. He didn't care, believe me. I know these guys too well. So, and me, my ego, Paramount put out a letter saying Sicilians will play Sicilians, Jewish doctors will be Jewish doctors, because the book, they said, was so great, they wanted to use unknowns. So I had money. So I shot a test for Michael, a test for Carlo, and a test for Sonny, and submitted it. And my memory's like a steel trap. I bought the film of Allen Photography in Las Vegas, and he sold me 16 millimeter mag stripe, because I was going to shoot it on an Arriflex camera. But the film was old. And again, these obstacles and things that would be a deterrent for most people turned out to be the reason how I got the part. Because when they got the test, I didn't know, nobody knew, that Coppola was trying to convince Bobby Evans, Stanley Jaffe, all the heads of Paramount, we should do it in a sepia tone and make it look old. So my test went around to everybody. So they didn't know who Gianni Russo was. They saw the test. So now I hear he's picketing up here and there's all kinds of problems. I jumped on a plane and came to see him on 86th Street, his club. And I walk in there and I said, Joe. And we hug and kiss because I was running a league. I had my own group in Vegas for the Italian Defamation League. Everybody had to create membership. So I was a buck a button sending it to him, all that. So I walk in there, I said, I got an idea. He said, what's your idea? And he just introduced me to Stu Slotnick. That was the lawyer he just hired. Nice Jewish lawyer. Very smart move. And they opened offices on Madison Avenue for the Anti-American Defamation League. And they had marches. 100,000 Italians would show up denouncing the Godfather book. And it was all this stuff. And Paramount had a lot of money invested in it already. So I said, Joe, we can make a lot of money. He says, oh, yeah. And he caught on to it. He said, we? I said, yeah. I said, what do you think I came here for? I got an idea. He said, what's your idea? I said, why don't we set up a meeting? We bring Barry with us. Let's go to their office. Let's find out what's bothering you with them. And if they agree to change it, give them the okay to shoot it. We can make a lot of money. It's how we're going to make money. As you're going to ask for the world premiere in every major city in the United States. The night before it opened, we'll have galas. People be scalping the tickets $500. Make all this money. Yeah. You think you could do that? I said, I don't know. Give me permission to go talk. So he looked at Barry. He said, Barry, what do you think? He said, let him go. So I left Madison Avenue, walked up to Columbus Circle, which happens to be Trump International now. Yeah. It was the Gulf and Western building. And I was there in the morning. There they all are. Bobby Evans, everybody flew here. And they all knew me from the test. They said, what's that guy doing here? So when I saw enough of them, I walked over to them. I said, I just left Joe Colombo. You got a big problem. He said, you just left Joe Colombo? I said, yeah. He says, what does he want? I said, he wants to meet with you. As you get him here? I said, you want him to come here? He'll come here. So they all looked at each other. They said, could you bring him tomorrow? I said, I'll bring him anytime you want. So I walked back down. That's how easy this was. It was not a rocket science here. It was. I walked down here. I said, they want to meet you. He said, you're kidding. It's great. I said, Joe, they're making a gangster movie. There are a bunch of Jews, but they know what's going on here. We got to bring a couple of heavies with us. Bring Butterass Chico. I knew his crew. Lenny Montana, who actually played
Luca Brasi.
Yeah. I said, we go there with him and the lawyer. Only 5 of us. We get the guys go against stand the door. We got to play the scene. He said, I'll do all the talking. It's okay. So we said, all sit down. They all shake hands. And I said, you know why we're here? I think this would be very simple. Let him read the script, Barry Slotnick. And whatever Joe is offended by, if you agree to change it, we'll get you the cooperation of all the unions, all the locations, and you could shoot the movie. They all looked at each other. I said, yeah. I said, yeah. It's okay. I said, but. And they all, oh, but. I said, well, there's 2 buts. The first but, if he does that, he has the world premiere of the movie in every major city that night to exploit and raise the money for the Italian-American Defamation League. We got to give something back to the Italians. So they all agreed to that. Mm-hmm. And they're all shaking hands now. So I'm saying, hey, Joe, I'm still sitting. They're all up shaking. I said, Joe, what about me? He says, what are you going to do for the kid? So Al Ruddy says, oh, no, we'll give him a part. I said, excuse me. Joe, tell him to sit down. He didn't even tell him to sit down. He went like this. They all sat down like puppets. I got up. I said, let me say something to you. The reason this guy's here, I brought him here. Now, I want a major part. They all looked at each other. They said, are you an actor? I said, no. I said, but don't worry about that. I said, who's playing Michael? Now, I'm going to tell you, you may not know. They said, James Caan's playing Michael.
Yeah.
So, okay. Who's playing Sonny? Carmine Caridi, man from La Mancha, big boy. They thought he should be a big guy. Yeah. I said, well, who's playing Carlo? They said, we didn't get to that part yet. I said, Joe, I want to play Carlo. So he says, he's playing Carlo. They all looked at each other. So Ruddy thought he was going to be cute. He said, are you in the union? I said, excuse me, Mr. Ruddy. I know my rights. This is a Taft-Hartley Act state. You give me a letter, I'm in the union tomorrow. That's how we got the part of Carlo. Yeah. It was and I went on to make 56 other motion pictures. 16 of them I'm a part of and I own. Seabiscuit, Rush Hour. And I'm about to make my major film now. It's big. My book.
Did you know at that time how big the movie is going to be? Obviously, there's so much attention the movie was receiving. There are people who were stealing the memorabilia from the sets itself. Joe Colombo was giving a lot of attention. But did you know that what you're creating is something special?
You know, I was 26, 27 years old.
Yeah.
My ego, I just wanted to be there. I didn't care. I had enough money. I knew that I could get more broads just by being in this movie. And that's what it was about. I was already had a Bentley, 65 Bentley with a Chinese chick chauffeur. But to answer your question, every day we thought they were going to pull the plug on it. They hated Pacino. Coppola fought for him. But when they saw the dailies, the first time they ever saw the daily rushes and what we shoot, a lot of people don't know what that is. But when they saw the dailies and they saw Michael in that army uniform with Kay, this is my father's business, Paramount and Charlie Bluedorn just bought Paramount. They're ready to pull the plug. So we didn't even know if the movie was going to come out. And every day, then they started seeing Michael grow into the guy he was. And it was the brilliance of Pacino. And look where we are. But I was early on, see my crazy mind? I early on knew where the picture was going once I seen the releases. Till this day, what I'm about to tell you, to this day, there's never been a film played 24 hours a day, 7 days a week in every film house in the United States for months. Never.
Yeah.
That movie played that long. So my little mind, I'm saying, well, what are you going to do with all these products? Stemco, olive oil, this, that, and the other. After a couple, I've seen that this was really going to go, and now I'm making Godfather 2. Yeah. I locked up all the rights to that. I laughed because the last line Pacino said to me before they killed me in the car, he said, "No, Carlo, your punishment is you're out of the family business now." And I thought I was leaving. Guess what? I own the family business now.
There is irony in that. You mentioned Al Pacino. He was an upcoming actor because of Panic in the Needle Park.
Right.
You had watched him improvise his performance of a one-legged golfer as well.
Oh my
You've
God.
seen him. What an incredible talent.
You did good notes, man. You really.
Thank you.
No,
You were surrounded by this cast and crew of heavyweights in that movie. You had Marlon Brando, Al Pacino, Robert Duvall, Diane Keaton. You had James Caan, Sterling Hayden. What did you learn from that cast? Are there any lessons that stand out to you about filmmaking and acting that you learned from them?
I learned nothing from them. You know why? They shut me out. Oh. When they found out I wasn't a thespian and I didn't study, the only guy who worried about me, and I found out in the rehearsal, this is how crazy my life was. You know where they had the rehearsal?
Patsy's.
Yeah. 119th Street. That was Fat Tony Salerno's joint. I used to bring midnight loans up there, 5,000, 10,000. I went up earlier that day because I knew Danny Pagano, seniors, all of them were there. I mean, you name every guy. One of my best friends, Tony Federici, he was an underboss with them. So I went up there early. They saw me. They said, "What are you doing here?" I said, "I'm here for the rehearsal." "For the Godfather?" I said, "Yeah." I said, "I got a big part. Get out of here." But everybody was telling me that. Get out of here. You're not moving. So now we go into the rehearsal. We're sitting around a bigger table than this. And Coppola says to the whole cast, "When we bring Mr. Brando into the room, don't look at him. Don't approach him during the breaks. If he says something to you, okay." Because all these, Pacino, all these guys like God is coming in the room. Yeah. So we had the first 45-minute rehearsal. Everybody introduced themselves. And, I had to memorize it because I can't read. I'm an illiterate. I had to memorize my part. So I knew what you were going to say and when I should talk. And I did it. And everybody faked it. So Coppola comes, not Coppola. Brando comes over to me. And he says, "You're a big TV actor." I said, "No." He said, "You got a big movie coming out." I said, "No." He said, "Who'd you study with?" I said, "What's this, a quiz show?" Because I ain't intimidated by this guy. Who cares about this guy? So he calls Coppola over. He says, "Francis, he's playing my son-in-law." And I never broke down the script. I didn't care. He marries my daughter. He undermines my family. He gets my oldest son, Sonny, killed. He lures my son Michael into the family. I didn't want this. You got to rethink this. And I'm saying, whoa, this guy's trying to get me fired. So I don't know protocol on the set. I said, "Francis, go over there a minute." I dismissed the director.
Strike one.
No. He left. Everybody in the room, you could hear a pin drop. They're saying, like, "Who is this guy?" Because they didn't know me either.
Sacrilege.
So now I did the biggest sacrilege. I put my arm on Brando and I walked him out because I didn't want to embarrass him. I said, "Mr. Brando, let me tell you something. All due respect, I know who you are, but you get me fired from here and embarrass me because everybody thinks already I'm not in this movie. And I know what you're trying to do here is get me fired. But if you happen to get that done, listen to me now. I will suck on your heart here, right here today, and you will bleed out." He stepped back. He said, "That was brilliant." He thought I was acting. I was ready to whack the guy. How can I go back in the neighborhood? You crazy?
There were so many interesting personalities as part of that cast and crew. Not many people know that famous fight scene that you had with James Caan, it was almost an actual fight. He threw a billy club at your head, not part of the script. He kicked you in the chest and broke a couple of your ribs as well.
Chipped my elbow, too. They were steel garbage pail covers, not plastic ones like we have today. I wish they were.
Why did Jimmy Caan do this? Why was he like this?
I found out later on because, as I told you, he was cast as Michael. When Coppola got involved, he got Pacino to play Michael. And then I got involved. He thought I had something to do with it. So he got the smallest part. He was done in after the movie. He thought he was going to make a career playing Michael like Michael did. Pacino, rather. But that's why, and then I finally found out because we wound up owning him. The Gambino family, we wound up owning him. He was given to us. After the second rally of the Italian Defamation League, Joe Colombo got hit 6 times. He was in a coma the rest of his life. So a guy took over, and he was the boss, who happened to be a good friend of mine.
And from that day, you promised yourself never do a fight scene in a movie ever again because of James Caan. Thanks, James Caan. Let's move into some of our closing questions. Which is the greatest movie of all time, according to you?
You know, how could I not say it is? Here we are, going on 53 years talking about this movie. And, you know, I got my father-in-law here. I came here to remind me of it. And my products. I mean, again, like I just said, my most recent concert was in Baku, Azerbaijan. I had 5,000 people. I'm not Sinatra. They came because of The Godfather. And they're still coming. This Sunday, Saturday, Sunday, the whole weekend, I have 30,000 people in Summit, New Jersey, coming to see me at a convention. I'll sell 500-600 books. My 8x10s. I buy an 8x10 for 12 cents. I sell it for $30. Is this a great country?
I asked so many people what is their favorite movie, but no one has been in the greatest movie of all time like you. Until I interview Al Pacino, you've got that honor of saying you've been in the greatest movie of all time. Who do you think was the greatest actor of all time?
In the movie?
Not in that movie, in just in general.
Well, I Brando to me was brilliant. I mean, on the waterfront, it's so much stuff this guy did. Then, you know what? I found to watch Sinatra, the man with the golden arm, and even here to eternity, this guy was a good actor, man. So, I mean, the people that I found was because Pacino, obviously, is a good friend of mine. Yeah. But Pacino is brilliant. I mean, he could be anything. You know, I got something that we may do together that he's very interested in.
I'm excited to see it. Last 4 questions for you. If you could go back in time and you could give one piece of advice to your younger self, what advice would you give yourself?
I've given this advice to so many young people who come to me because I think when somebody asks you a serious question like that and creating what you want to do in life, it's really an easy answer, but most kids don't know it. Don't ever try to be something that you already know you can't. Pick something. Don't tell anybody what it was. And one kid said, why shouldn't I tell anybody? I said, because if you fail, then they know you failed. Keep it to yourself. Accelerate in things you know you can and be truthful to yourself. Put the time in and you'll accomplish it. And I said, I own how many companies? Ridiculous. I'm writing books I can't even read. I'm writing bestsellers. It's crazy. Because I felt I could. And I had something to say. I had something to share. That's what I'm doing. My book is a bestseller not because I'm a great writer. It's my life story that people are intrigued with. That's an accomplishment.
It's great advice. If you could go back in time and relive one day of your life or one memory from your life, what memory do you want to live again?
None. Not one. The pains, the tribulations, the hiding in sewers with rats chasing me, nothing. It all made me who I am today. I wouldn't change 1 minute of my life. Not an hour, a day, nothing. There's a reason for it.
When you were partially paralyzed with polio, you made a novena that if you ever walk again, you light 5 candles for St. Anthony every day. Not only did you walk again, but you went on to live this rich life full of adventure. If I get to live 10% of the life that you've lived, I would consider it a ride of a lifetime. When you look back now, how do you want to be remembered? What would you like your legacy to be?
Well, my legacy, I'm building it quietly, and I don't really exploit it. I created, the last sentence in my first book was, yes, you can. I have a foundation called Yes, You Can. an anonymous foundation. And we're working with schools of children of not great means, and I give them $25,000 a year for school. That's going to be my legacy. Someday, somebody's going to find out. And you know what's so funny? Unbeknownst to me, because this is a funny part of it, Costello was annoyed constantly by Mayor LaGuardia. They tried to crush him, wreck him. They have a school here called Mayor LaGuardia. You know who started the foundation in Mayor LaGuardia's school for kids? Frank Sinatra. I'm taking that over also for the arts. That's going to be my legacy. When I die, they're going to say, you know, that's what he did. And I got a lot of money to leave.
Final question. What is the meaning of life, Gianni Russo? What is the meaning of all of this? What is the purpose?
My purpose? Just having fun, man. Help people if I can. I don't bother nobody. But if you want to get hurt, bother me.
That is a great purpose. So it was such a privilege. Thank you for being so gracious with your time and for hosting us. It was an honor. Thank you so much.
No, thank you. Thank you, both of you.